In January 1975, Motown released Michael Jackson's fourth solo album, Forever Michael. It was not a success, peaking only at 101 on the charts, 8 notches lower than Michael's poorly selling Music and Me album. Neither album would even make the top 50 in the UK, and the rest of Europe also showed dismal sales. That's it, Joseph decided. He is not recording any more solo albums for Gordy. That man's gonna ruin Michael. Joseph had become increasingly agitated by Motown's lack of promotion and Barry's connection that the group had no potential to write or produce their own music. Joseph realized that his sons would never make big money unless they owned the publishing rights to their own songs. If an artist writes his own material, he makes not only an artist royalty, but an additional royalty, since songwriters are paid a royalty on every record that is sold. At this time, the rate was an additional 2 cents per copy sold, split 50-50 with the song's publisher. Therefore, the B side of a million selling song, the side that really, if ever gets radio airplay, could be worth up to $20,000. At least, Joseph reasoned the boys should be able to write their own B-sides. Was that too much to ask? Most of Barry's songwriters were signed to Jobet, his publishing company. Therefore, they had to split their 2 cents with Barry. Joseph wanted his boys to establish their own publishing company so that they could keep the money in the family. The more he pressed the idea forward, the more Barry resisted it. In the past, Barry had always been reluctant to share the money generated from publishing rights to Motown songs. At the same time, Smokey Robinson, Barry's closest friend, was negotiating with Barry to allow him to publish his own songs as well. Jobet owned a lot of Smokey songs too, and Smokey, like Joseph Jackson, wanted a bigger piece of the pie. Eventually, Barry did allow Smokey to share that money so he could be swayed. However, persistence was always the key when it came to getting Barry Gore to do something about which he was reluctant. Smokey and Barry were friends, yet Smokey had to endure a fair amount of tough negotiation. What could Joseph, certainly no friend, expect from Barry? It seemed that he and his sons would have little chance of controlling publishing rights to their material as long as he and Barry had such a contentious relationship. Everett Abner was now practically running the record division of Motown anyway. Someone else Joseph disliked. Joseph's mind was made up. The Jackson 5 would have to leave Motown. Was it even possible? If not for Barry and Motown, where would the Jackson 5 be? Perhaps still in Gary, Indiana was the answer. Still, the circumstances didn't soon change at Motown. It was clear that the group's commercial future would be in jeopardy. Though the group didn't yet vote on the decision, it was likely that Joseph's vote would sway his sons. Michael said later that he knew the brothers would agree with his father. Michael was as unhappy as the rest of the family about what was going on in Motown, yet he still felt a loyalty to Barry. After all, it was largely due to Barry's confidence in the Jackson 5 that the family now found itself in a position to be able to pick and choose among another record companies. This was a major decision for young Michael, and he didn't want his father, a man he didn't trust or even like, making it for him. The other Jacksons saw Michael as being bashful and reserved, which was certainly true in most cases. However, there was another dimension to Michael, a side he did not often show, but which was there just the same, his resolve. Where his future at Motown was concerned, 16-year-old Michael Jackson was prepared to make and take matters into his own hands. He picked up the phone in his bedroom and dialed Mr. Gordy. He said, "You and I need to talk." None of the Jackson brothers had ever had a private meeting with Berry Gordy until now. There had never been a reason for one. It's likely that Barry would have consisted to meet with Jackie Marlin, Randy, or Tito. None of them possessed Michael's commercial voice or magical showmanship. And Barry felt he owed it to the teenager to hear him out. Though he liked Michael, he considered him shy and meek, hardly the person to be blunt and forethought. Therefore, he was probably intrigued by the notion of a private conference with him. Michael didn't care how his father felt about his decision to meet with Barry. In fact, he didn't discuss it with him, still angry at Joseph for all he had done to Catherine, not to mention the abuse he had heaped upon his sons. Michael made up his own mind. Also, Michael would say later that his intuition told him in the difficult situation with Motown would be resolved sooner if only Joseph had been so ill-tempered and possessive. Others at the label agreed. Smug Robinson said, in retrospect, Joe never got used to Barry being the one to tell his kids what to do. He believed that since he was their father, he was their boss, and that was the end of that. But Joe wasn't a businessman. He kept screwing things up and madding people off. No one wanting to do business with him. And that was a poor reflection not only on the Jacksons, but also on Barry and Motown. Without Joe's involvement, Barry would have worked things out with the Jacksons the way he did with me, Stevie Wonder, and anyone else who was unhappy at Motown but ultimately stayed on. Nor did Michael tell his brothers I was planning to meet with Barry, since he felt certain that they would try to talk him out of it. The Jacksons pride themselves on one vote each, even though Joseph's vote usually trumped everyone else's. Most certainly, Michael's siblings would have felt that by meeting with Barry, he was using more power than he was entitled to have as part of the group. Michael and Barry arranged to meet at the Gordy Estate in Bel Air on May 14th, 1975. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever done, Michael recalled, mustering up his courage. He laid his cards on the table. "We're all unhappy, Mr. Gordy," he said, according to his memory. "Do you really want us to leave Motown?" "Well, Michael, someone as smart as you," Barry began, "should know that without Motown, the Jacksons would be in Gary, Indiana today." Michael wasn't cowed by the fact that Barry had apparently decided to play the guilt card. "That doesn't answer my question," he said. Michael would later recalled that he complained to Barry about the fact that Mozart would not allow the brothers to produce or write their own music or controlling publishing rights. He was unhappy because he had been allowed to contribute to the Jackson 5's most recent album, Danger Machine, despite the fact that he thought he had some strong songs he could have added to the package. If he had shown that Barry had confidence in him as a songwriter. Barry remained calm. "I've been hearing this from my artists for years," he said. "However, we can work it out, Michael. Look, I worked it out with Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye, didn't I?" He was clear. He said he did not want the group to leave Motown. However, he added, "If you think you can get a better deal, somewhere else, then I have to go somewhere else, I guess. Doing this for 10 minutes. But it just won't be right or fair. In Michael's eyes, Barry Gordy was a hero. He respected him and admired the tenacity with which he had transformed the Jackson 5 of Gary, Indiana from local homeboys to international superstars. He thought of Barry as one of the smartest men he had ever known and was amazed by the way he had made Motown such an international success story. Barry was an inspiration to Michael. To him, now say that the Jackson family was being unfair to him after he had brought the group to Los Angeles, made arrangements for their living conditions, paid for their educations, and made them stars, was difficult for Michael. What makes you think you can write or produce your own hit? Barry asked Michael. I just knew it, was Michael's quick answer. Barry looked at him skeptically. I don't know. That's good enough. Well, what made you think you could build Motown into what it is today? Barry didn't answer. You just knew it, right? Michael challenged. Barry flashed a tolerant grin. He nodded at me as if to say, you're going places, kid, Michael recalled. It ended with Barry emphasizing that he thought of himself as a father figure to Michael, who also stressed that it was important for the teenager to honor his natural father. He said he believed I would do what was best, Michael told me later. With remembering the meeting, Michael added that he felt a little sick about the whole thing, especially when Barry hugged him as he was leaving, because in his gut, he knew that no matter what he expressed to Joseph and the brothers about it, the cards were stacked against the Jacksons, standing with Motown. I can promise you this, Barry concluded. I won't do anything to hurt you or your family. Michael's meeting with Barry Gorey showed surprising initiative, as well as no small measure of courage for a teenager. It was the first hint to many at the time that he was more than just a child prodigy. He had moxie. He seemed to understand that his father didn't, but there are times when it makes sense to sit down with your opponent and try to reason with him. In his own uncomplicated way, Michael was able to cut through some of the rhetoric that had lately been so prevalent in the communication between Barry and the Jackson family. He was able to extract from Barry a promise that he would not do anything to hurt the family, which was quite a statement for him to make and seemed genuine. Joseph had heard from an associate of Motown that Michael had seen Barry in private. Imagine his fury. When Michael got back to his machine, he was pacing in the living room like a caged animal waiting for dinner. Michael would not discuss with me the details of the argument that ensued between him and his father, but it was difficult to imagine that Joseph made it clear that, in his view, Michael was out of his league in trying to negotiate with someone like Barry Gorey. Once he had calmed down, he had to admire his son's nerve, though. At least, one would hope so. The brothers, however, were annoyed. Michael had no right to meet with Barry Gordy, Jackie said years later. It was unfair of him to go behind our backs. We were all mad at him, and really, what did he accomplish? Perhaps Michael didn't accomplish much in terms of the Jackson Five's future at Motown, but his meeting with Barry was an important personnel milestone. He obtained Barry's attention, which was something even his father, as well as his brothers, with the exception of Jermaine, had not been able to do. However, it did seem, apart from the brothers, and from this time forward, none of the brothers will be able to be warmed to the suggestion that Michael will be further individualized from the group. Marco always has his own idea of how things should be done. I've been doing this for 15 minutes. Rather Jackson once said, but the Jackson 5 was the group, not his special project, and it was just one vote. In other words, Marlon saw the writing on the wall. The night after Michael's meeting with Barry, Joseph called a group meeting in the living room of their Regina home. All of the brothers were expected to appear except for Randy and Jermaine. Young Randy had no say in any group matters at this time. Jermaine was on holiday with Hazel, but he probably would have been excluded anyway since the family felt he had lost his objectivity about Motown. Jermaine later said, because of me being married to Hazel, they thought they couldn't trust me, so they kept me in the dark. Jackie, Tito, Marlon, Michael, and Joseph voted on unanimously to leave Motown. Michael was oblivious, but he knew it wasn't smart to be the one to sit and vote. What good would that do to him anyway? I just want it to be done fairly, and something about this doesn't seem fair to me, Michael said. Barryman has stars. Don't forget that. Look, Barry's fine, but it's over, one of the brothers says. It's time for us to be making the big bucks. I agree, said another one. It's time to go. We're dying at Motown. He said he wouldn't hurt us, Michael said, trying to stick up for Barry. Yeah, right, Joseph said sarcastically. Look, it's settled, he concluded. But what about Jermaine? Michael wanted to know. I'll take care of Jermaine, Joseph said. What do I always tell you kids? There are winners in this life and losers, Michael said, pouring his father's credo. And none of my kids are going to be losers. Joseph smiled. If we stay on Motown, he concluded, we lose, and we're not losing.